Welcome to Good Service. We are your hosts, Ben Chung.
And Kevin's Huh?
Each week we'll be breaking bread and having real, raw, and vulnerable talks about life, faith, and everything in between, and always over a fire meal.
Thanks for joining our table today. Let's eat.
Folks, welcome back to another episode of Good Service. We are your hosts, Ben.
And Kevin.
And before we get into today's episode, man, we are really excited. We have a Patreon that is live and well. Folks, if you have already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting us. If you have not, make sure you go to patreon.com/goodservicepodcast. You can subscribe. We're going to load monthly exclusive content that's only going to be for our Patreon supporters, so you won't find that content anywhere. We're going to keep loading that up. We're going to have events. We're going to have exclusive things that are only going to be for our Patreon supporters. So make sure you subscribe and support us if you dig what we're doing. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Today we are so stoked. We have a friend in the pod. Today we have leading teaching pastor at Capo Beach Church in Capistrano Beach, California. He's a co-founder of YWAM's The Tribe. He is an author. He has a book called Change Together, 7 Practices of a Lifestyle Missionary.
Wow.
We have husband and father of 2. We have Matt Whitlock in the pod. What's up, Matt?
Flowers, man.
You're laughing. Was any of that wrong?
No, it was good.
Okay.
It was good. It's just, I'm just Matt. So
you're not just Matt, but I get it.
That works.
All right, so I'm so excited for today's meal, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we always have good food here, but this just so happens to be my favorite fried chicken in the world.
Really?
Which is a huge claim.
And it's a huge claim. I've had fried chicken all over the place, but there is a nostalgia that is attached to this. Today we're having Pioneer Chicken. It is an OG LA fried chicken establishment that was established in the 70s. And so when I grew up in the 80s, there was 2 fried chicken joints. There was KFC that everyone still knows, and then there was Pioneer Chicken.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way, all the Pioneer Chickens became Popeyes.
Oh,
and it's not
really?
that they just changed their name to Popeyes. Popeyes is a whole different fried chicken restaurant, recipe and everything. So this just started to disappear, and I got so sad because I was Team Pioneer Chicken growing up. So today we have their classic golden battered fried chicken, along with their chicken spicy rice and their mashed potatoes and gravy and their biscuits. We got biscuits. We got honey and butter.
Ooh, I need to see that.
Feel free to grab your sauces.
Ooh, can I get a biscuit, actually? I forgot to grab one.
Yeah, you got to get a biscuit.
Thank you so much.
We got all the
right
sauces,
here.
barbecue, tapatio, hot sauces.
Biscuit.
Okay, so before we get into it, we have before we get our first bite on, we have a prompt or a thought that we like to share around the table. We called it a first bite reflection.
All right.
And so, given I was, doing a little bit of homework on you, and I was kind of praying. I mean, you have a lifestyle of like missionary work that you've done, and I know that term missionary is just people. I have a very specific picture when I think missionary. I'm thinking you drop everything and you go move to Africa and you live there and
carry your stuff in your pine car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That to me is
There's a Liam Neeson movie about this, guys.
Yes, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is.
I know it. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but that is a version of missionary work. But to kind of just even break down that word missionary, like mission, right? So as I was thinking about just all of us as believers, as followers of Jesus, like we are called to the Great Commission. And then I think that's kind of like this macro, right? But I think even individually, God puts mission on our hearts in a very unique sort of micro way. So with that, what is your mission right now? What is your mission right now?
And as you think about this,
yes,
as you think about it, we raise a little air dab
yes,
to the camera, a little air dab to the audience. Your camera's over there.
yes,
Just
yeah.
a little here you go, a little dab action.
And then we're gonna take our bite.
First bite.
Dude, wait. Y'all go first, man. I want to.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like this is so personal.
I'm gonna wait
I feel like this is vulnerable food right now.
Yes.
It's tied to his childhood. any kind of trauma that's happened. It's tied to this fried chicken right now. I feel like if I don't get the right response, it's over.
I no judgment here.
Right,
no
let me
judgment
just make
here.
sure I get the meat bite.
Feel free to do it into the mic. We want that ASMR crunch, you know?
All right, I just need to make sure I get the right spot. All right,
Yeah, you don't want to get bone. You want to get that fleshy part of the meat.
Am I doing this alone?
Yeah,
I'm going in solo.
Yeah, I'm going solo. I'm gonna go right after you.
Listen to that crunch. Oh.
Dang. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you go. Oh my, yes. Here we go.
Wow. Okay. That's a good fried chicken.
Okay, can I explain why it's so good for me?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Tell us why. Oh my gosh.
Because when you bite, it's got this crisp, but I don't know how they do it, but that crisp melts in your mouth.
Yes, it does.
Man, the crisp melts in your mouth.
Wow.
Yes, it does.
And I don't know how they get that going with the skin at the same time. You get the flavor of the skin, you get the crisp, but then it just like there's no, it just melts. It's just, it's amazing.
So you're having a chicken breast. Sometimes chicken breast is dry, but this is just juicy.
So
it's like
juicy.
a flavor burst.
So juicy.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say, what's really unique is there's these air pockets in the crisp, and I'm like, whoa! It reminds me of like a croissant.
Ooh, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's actual, but
airy.
Yes.
and usually when there is a lot, definitely it's fried chicken, so there's still a lot of grease. But
Yes.
one of the things I'm noticing, oh my goodness, is that there is so much flavor in this.
So much flavor.
Oh my gosh.
And I would describe the batter, because you know when you eat fish and chips, it's not the same type of batter as a typical fried chicken. Fish and chips is a little bit flakier, and I feel like it has a little bit of a fish and chip like batter consistency, but a whole different flavor profile, right? Like you're just going for the skin itself right now. So.
Yeah, I just had to eat it.
Yeah.
I had to try it separately.
Yeah.
The best.
Man, I almost forgot what we were talking about. Oh yeah, so
Let me get one more bite.
we're just like lost in our food right now.
I know.
Shout out Pioneer Chicken.
It's like first bite reflections. We're eating
we
the
might
whole
just
meal.
we
at
might
this
just
point.
not even talk about anything other than the food. But shout out Pioneer Chicken. There's only 2 left currently.
Oh, really?
In California, and one of them is in Boyle Heights, and the other one I believe is in I want to say it's in like Bell Gardens or West Covina. I might have that wrong, but the Boyle Heights one. Shout out Boyle Heights Pioneer Chicken.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for providing this meal
Thank
today.
you guys.
What
Thank
a
you
blessing.
guys.
What a blessing. So yes, first bite reflection question. What is your mission right now?
Yeah, when I was a kid growing up, my mom said I was going to write a book because I was so nosy. And she goes, I already got the title for you. I haven't written this book yet, but she goes, I got the title for you already. I'm like, what's the book called, Mom? She goes, you're going to write a book. It's going to be called Everybody's Life But Mine. Now get out of my business. And that's funny. I know it's funny,
That's
but
so good.
at the same rate, for me, I'm just, if I look at my whole life and my professional career, I've stayed the most passionate about helping people discover the unique gift and calling God's given them, and then doing everything I can to network and resource them to be able to accomplish that thing God's given them. Because I believe the best kind of representation of the good news of the kingdom is people walking in their full potential and kind of and walking out the gifts that God's put within them. I think we're too busy trying to like group ourselves in groups constantly. Like we're in this group, you're in that group, or I'm kind of, and I'm like, we don't need groups. God is big enough to make 7 billion unique people on planet Earth with unique ways of bringing him glory.
Wow.
So I think for me, even though I've done like entrepreneurship, working for virtual reality companies in China, pastoring, traditional mission work, whatever it's been, kind of at my core has always been like, how do I create atmospheres for people to discover the gifts and calling God's put on their life?
Wow.
So they can kind of incarnate that, and then people around them can go, wow, that's the gospel. Like, this is good news. Despite everything happening around you, you're finding fulfillment and purpose in what God's leading you into. And I think that's what draws people. So I'd say that's kind of like the core calling I think I have, but I would never put that on a card. I don't think I'd ever write a book about that. I don't think I'd ever, put that anywhere. It's just kind of like what I carry in my heart to do.
Right.
Most,
That's really good, man.
Like, I'm so nosy, I care about your gifts. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's so good. That's so needed too, especially, with so many folks that are so talented, just kind of like, and they're so sad because they're so lost, even though they are so talented. So I really appreciate that.
They get trapped in comparison.
Ooh.
And that's like,
yeah.
That's when, the enemy loves to break everyone up. He uses discouragement because he wants to steal your courage from being the person God's called you to be. He wants you to get trapped up in comparison because then you're always thinking you got to be someone else and who God's called you to be. Gets you trapped in criticism because then you're always picking yourself apart first, because criticism only comes after you've been so tired of picking yourself apart, then you start picking other people apart.
Wow.
And those are just tactics the enemy uses to shut us down from doing the things God's called us to do.
Wow. Ben, you got yours?
Yeah, I think it's along the lines of that. When I even think back to the beginnings of this podcast and even the insecurities that I had about starting something like this was because I thought I'm not an expert on really anything, let alone like the Bible and the Christian faith. Because you people tend to think you should only talk about that which you are an expert. You know what I mean? And I think I get that. They're sure, like, you should never teach on something as if you are the authority if you don't know what you're talking about. But I think when it comes to, the life of a Christian, there are people who have been walking with the Lord for decades, and there are people who just came to Christ yesterday. And neither person is like unqualified to talk about their faith. You know what I mean? Both people are very qualified because it's not a work that either of them did for themselves. It was a work that was done for you. And I think everybody's experience in what happened or what is happening as you are understanding your relationship with Jesus is completely legit. And all throughout Scripture, we see accounts of different types of healings and different ways that Jesus chose to heal and different ways that people come to know Jesus. We got a motorcycle outside. I don't know if that's picking up. We got a Harley out there who agrees strongly.
We are in LA.
We are in LA.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think going along with the beginnings of some sort of a ministry focused endeavor, call it, being a preacher, calling it starting a podcast, calling it putting out YouTube videos or Instagram videos talking about what it means to follow Jesus. And so I think, my mission right now is to be authentically myself, to be fully embracing of everything that God put in me, my talents, my interests, my experiences, and showing how Jesus is interwoven in all of those things. It's not compartmentalized of like my Jesus thing is over here and everything else is over here. And I kind of like go back and forth from one to the other. And I used to be that way. I used to be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to do my Christian thing when I'm with Christian people and in those environments. And then I clock out of that and then I go into the real world and I go do my real world thing. And so I think I was very much, like I segregated those things without even me realizing. But, Jesus invites us into a holistic lifestyle, a holistic relationship with him. And he's like, I want to be in everything that you do, all of your relationships, all of your work, all of your dreams, everything that you find entertaining, I even want to be a part of. So I think that's my mission, is to just embrace all of it and not only embrace it, but to really position it and surrender it all at the foot of the cross. And I think the surrender piece of it is huge, because the other side to putting something out, I'm sure you can attest to this, being a pastor, of like looking at a congregation and being aware of how either large your congregation is or how small it is. It's just, you're just aware. How many followers do you have? And versus, who liked your posts or who unsubscribed to your account, who unfollowed you, like those things can be distracting. And so, I think making sure that like, okay, Lord, I'm going to give you everything. And then however you decide to bless it, big or small, that's up to you. You know, that you are the one who blesses. I'm just called to show up and do the work. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think I love what you shared, because like I think a part of me was like, I want to take that. I want to take Matt's mission. Like I was like, that's such a good mission.
Well, it's kind of what you do in food, right?
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah.
People come and say, I got this idea, this dream. Can we mix this and this?
Yeah.
And you go, I'm the dream maker.
Yeah.
Like I can see the vision for this for you more than you can for yourself, and I can work to put the pieces together to.
Yeah. So I think that's the part that I was attracted to, is the piecing together of the community. And, you know, there was where we met at a retreat. And in that retreat, I remember the story of Daniel was spoken upon our group, right? And the three of us, and what was going on in this Bible study that we're a part of as well. And that really did stick with me. And I started thinking about so many different things, because again, when I had this big moment with God in like the end of 2022, I was just like, okay, cool. I'm going to go be a pastor. Like that's like the thing. I'm going to go teach. I'm going to learn as fast as I can. I'm going to go teach. And obviously that didn't work out, but that wasn't even like,
or did it not work out?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Did it not?
I don't know. I don't know, man. Yeah. But what ended up really happening is that, I just really fell deeply and madly in love with God last year in a way that I can't even explain. And it continues to surprise me like every day. And so the mission, it's funny that we talk about mission, is because I don't like thinking in grandeur. Like I don't like thinking too big anymore, which is weird. I used to dream big all the time. Big meaning not like crazy idea, but more like 5-year plan, 10-year plan, like grandiose ideas of, you know, I'll put something on a wall and go, I'm going to go hit that target XYZ, right? And that was me, you know, naturally business builder, whatnot. You have to plan. That's what I thought. My entire life, that was me. And all of a sudden, all of last year, I just kept sitting and hanging out with God. And it was like the opposite. And I'm like, this is insane. How do people live like, why are you making me do this? You know, like, why do you want me to live like this? This is an insane way to live. This is not smart. Like, what do you mean, God? Like, why am I doing like all this, you know, wrestling? And so the mission, when I think of mission, I get much smaller today, I guess, which is, I know the gifts that God gave me are becoming very clear. I love talking about God. And a double-edged sword is I have a sharp tongue in the good way and the bad way. So I have I speak well. I know I do. And so I've found myself in random circles of people, and a lot of folks that know me will say, Kevin can make friends with a rock. Like literally like with pebbles on the floor, with, you know, the door. He'll be the door's best friend. The door's best friend is now Kevin, right? And I would laugh at them and whatnot, but like I really know that is something that I've been gifted with. And I know in the past I've abused that power and whatever. But today I really want to use all of that, because I really love being able to be in those specific moments of boldness where I can get them kind of curious about what God's doing in my life. And so today, like, it's just daily bread. I wake up and the mission is, God, what do you have for me today? But I also understand what he's done in my life.
Yeah.
And so please use all of that. And when I meet people that just love Jesus, I go, hey, I have all this stuff. That's just been, I don't know what, but God filled this bag up with all this stuff I have. Do you need to use any of it? And let me just give it all to you, and God will figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in the past, I'd be like, hey, if I give you this,
what do I
can you give something back to fill that spot? Or if I give you this, give me a percentage of that. Just so I feel like a little bit of safety, that I'm not giving too much of mine away. But now it's like, no, this bag wasn't even mine. I don't know why it's here, but so just take it.
Yeah.
It's a weird season, dude.
No, it's a good season. It's a good season. You know, I think what's happened in, you know, the American church is, you know, if you look at scripture, there's these like gift sets, some call them the fivefold ministry, you know, evangelist, teacher, pastor. And these what were meant to be gifts to the church for the equipping of the church, we made occupations in this organization of a church.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so what happened was where maybe in the beginning of the ancient church, people were just realizing I'm prophetic, I'm evangelistic, you know, I'm apostolic, I'm, you know, and I'm a teacher. And they would organize themselves around the gift set to serve each other. They weren't looking to build buildings. They didn't have any campaigns. They were working in the city. They were serving people, tent making and doing whatever. But in this community, they served each other's gifts. We used those gifts and made them occupations in a legal organization that we now have known as a church. And so now we come to hear the pastor, but the pastor never sits and goes, yeah, but are you the pastor? Are you the evangelist? Are you? That's not it. It's like, It's like, oh, we just need to hire more pastors. Oh, we need to find an evangelist to come and work at our church. Instead of going, wait, hold on a second. At best, if we're hired in this church, we're administrators. And at best, our job is just to make sure the rest of the church finds their gift and is mobilized in it.
Wow.
But that doesn't happen because that maybe won't pay the bills or that won't feed into the ego of the pastor and their campaign. And I can say all this because I'm a lead teaching pastor in the church.
He's like, look at this dude talking all this crap, dude.
I played all the games. All right. So, you know, it becomes this thing. So then what happens is then when people in the church start finding faith, when you find your faith, you find mission, because mission is not like an activity of the church. Mission is actually part of God. So in God's character, he is on mission. He doesn't separate that. He's not like, okay, I'm caring for everyone. Okay, now let's all go do our summer mission. It's like, God in his character is sending. He's been sending. He's always sending. He's always active. He's pursuing your heart's mind. He's on mission. So when you find that you've been like the target of that mission and you get hit by that love, you feel drawn then to do something. Like everyone new in their faith is like, what do I got to do? Well, is that weird that people feel that? It's because they're connected to the mission of God going like, there's stuff to do. Like, I don't know what it is. There's stuff to do. So people come to church, they find God, they get fired up. And then their church is like, okay, well, you know, you probably should enroll in this class that's going to be 3 years to be equipped. And what kind of, okay, you're probably a pastor and you can, and you're like, what? And then, oh my gosh, like I got to pay my bills. And then people just go, I'm just going to show up on Sunday and attend. But it misses the whole point. You know, that's not how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to like be on mission in our life with Christ. Sometimes that might play out as a career for some people, but for everyone, they're supposed to do that in their different kinds of careers. You know, so some people might be called to be a career missionary. I do believe people are called to like move to Cambodia. I have friends who have done it, learn the language, raise their kids in that language. They're planting a university down there to disciple that nation. Like I'm like, I can't support him enough, but that's not the only way to be a missionary. That's a career missionary. But then you guys are probably called to have the same mentality and attitude, but in your different kinds of careers. So it's like, but I work in the arts in this way. I work in business this way. Okay, how do I carry then this calling? Maybe I'm not called to be a career pastor, but I'm definitely called maybe to pastor in the different people's lives that are in my career, because that pastor might not ever reach that. So the church is what's made that kind of confusing, I think, and made it difficult for people to easily just like find God, spot their gifts, grow in Christ, and then go do it. And then the church hasn't done a real good job to mobilize those people to make them feel validated. You know, so like you know, in our church, that was that Monday night thing you came to. I'm like, okay, how do I get the cultural leaders in my church together intentionally, monthly, to say you're valued, you're on the mission, you need to be doing this and this. How can I serve you as you're out doing that thing? And so, but that the church hasn't done a very good job on that. So then there's this
Sure.
pressure you feel like, oh, I found God. It was my faith was renewed. I guess I'm so passionate. I got to be a pastor. Like, that's the only like
the
that's like the
option.
jump.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And God's like, hey, I lit you up so you'd stay right there because I need light and darkness. There's plenty of light over here up in this church.
Yeah.
We got so much light in this church. People are blind as to what they're supposed to be doing right now. We're so salted up. We can't taste nothing no more.
Right.
Like
my
Jesus
God.
is like,
Taste
you
the
stay
same.
there.
Oh my God.
Light shines brightest in darkness, and I'll do what I did. I stay lit up, you know. But we feel this
Dude.
pressure, like, no, I gotta go. I gotta like drop. This is off from the devil now. I gotta go drop and be over here. And I can only imagine Jesus is like, no, like, what are you doing? Like,
Oh my gosh.
So I think,
Dude.
but it's because of the construct of church right now, and I don't know if that will ever adjust. You know,
Sure.
You know, this is kind of a hot topic. We kind of touched on this on a previous episode. Shout out Will Chung.
Yeah.
The comments were lit because, he had touched on the fivefold ministry. And I guess we didn't really go super deep into it to unpack that. So I think it's almost kind of like we're revisiting this topic. And I guess I have a lot of questions in regards to it because I'm reading the comments and I'm seeing there's like two different schools of thought. Like some people are
Just
like,
real quick, it absolutely went viral when we talked about this topic. It went nuts. Like it reached like 500,000 views or whatever because people were so like, we need this.
right. And I think it's this like people are like, yes, why aren't we talking about this more in church? And then there's this other like, just I'm not gonna like call any specific viewpoint up, but it's just like there are no more apostles, that whole thing, and so. And I feel like, I don't like, again, I'm no expert on any of this. So I'm just reading and I'm like, interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Well, let me talk to God about it. Let me see how I feel. Yeah. And so, my personal, I guess, sort of conviction is like, I feel that like what you're saying, what Will is saying, like I see that because I've also experienced that, and I'm not in any way villainizing the church. You know what I mean? It's like, I love it. Like it's necessary. Yeah. But I think, because it is a construct that is run by man, and man is flawed, and we've all heard about the abuse of power and like spiritual abuse and things like that, and not to even go down that rabbit hole, but I think because we've all seen different versions of like why people feel this way and then why people feel that way. Rather than going down the rabbit hole of how do you feel, is like, what does the Bible actually say about these things? And how do we now apply biblical truth to the way that like Western culture or just maybe not even just Western culture, just the church culture as in general has adopted these things and have kind of, maybe without even ill intent of manipulation. Maybe it's not like we want to just twist that to make it serve us. It's just like, it's just maybe interpreted differently. So what's your take on applying biblical truth to the way that church is today?
I would say, we all have church hurt.
Right.
I would say every pastor has church hurt. It's a weird concept when we judge the church because it's like, here's the deal. You have a massive group of people that voluntarily come together because they all admit they're the worst person in the room every time.
Yeah.
So they find Jesus and they're like, I need Jesus because I can't get anything right. They come together voluntarily to recognize that. Of course, that organized group is going to hurt each other because they're like, because they haven't. That's why some of them are there because all their friends ditched them. Like it's like the most broken group of people in the world. But yet, we want to uphold them higher because we put this name called God, we put Jesus on it and God on it. You know, so. But I would say with church hurt, I feel like it's important for people who have experienced church hurt, which is their feelings are true. They have been hurt. I would never downgrade any of that. But don't project that on Jesus. Acknowledge that Christians might have hurt me, but it wasn't Christ. Amen. And then I'd also say you have to make a distinction between the church of Christ as far as like the group of people God's using in the world in comparison to the incorporated church that man builds as a legal structure. And I think that's important too, because I don't feel like Jesus didn't come along and say, okay, build this 501c3 organization. It will be tax exempt and you will hire at a base salary and you'll recruit these people. And if that's not what he said. At best guess, it's an It's an organized group of people that comes together voluntarily to confess their sins to one another, to sing songs and praises to the Lord, to share food and teaching, and to go out and help everyone they possibly can. But it's organized. We do see some organization there. There are elders and people that work, and there are some categories. But of course, humans always desire significance. We always desire to find meaning in everything that we do. And of course, then if you're organizing something and someone starts organizing, they're going to want to find significance in what they're doing. They're going to want to know what matters. And so they're going to want to judge it according to maybe money or numbers. And then that's where the human heart gets weird every time. And so that's where it gets weird in the structure and people start getting hurt from those different scenarios. Because the ultimate dream, I mean, the ultimate dream of freedom that Jesus gave us is that we're free from all that, meaning that we found our bread, which is Christ. We found our water, which is Christ. We found our purpose, which is Christ. We found our meaning, which is Christ. We found our significance, which is Christ. Like, what's more significant than knowing you're the child living God? What should give you more worth than the reality that Christ gave his life for you? Like, so if we can find all those answers to those questions that we deal with constantly, then what do you want me to do, Lord? Clean toilets the rest of my life? If I already know that my worth is determined by what you do on the cross, I'll clean toilets. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. That's the dream, because then we're free from the world systems, comparison. We're free from all that now because we found Christ. Of course, that's the dream. Doesn't always happen. So then what happens is humans find significance in what they do, what they build, and that goes with business or church. We'd like to say people will be more conscious of it in church. I don't think so. I think it's maybe worse because there's a platform and people stand on it. People look up to you and it feeds this hero mentality and all the rest. And that's where people get hurt. But to answer your question, I think it's very important for people to really understand that there is in America and in Western countries primarily, Church Incorporated and then the Church of Christ. Church Incorporated is what humans have built off of the vision that Christ gave us for what the church is. But it doesn't mean that our way of doing things in Church Incorporated, the way we feel that of hiring pastors, that doesn't mean that Jesus told us to do that. It's just some of that stuff has just become cultural that we've done.
Yep.
And that's but you'll find people get uptight about that stuff, but it just is what it is. Like at the core of the church, it was broken people coming together who found Jesus, worship together. You know, it says, come singing songs and praises, share the apostles teaching together, someone's imparting and teaching, and go out there and reach the world. And outside of that, it's all stuff we've built kind of around it and on it and all the rest. And unfortunately, that part has probably hurt people.
What's your take on the, within that fivefold, right? Like the prophet or the prophetic and the apostolic.
Yeah. I think that stuff gets confused. I would say there's a lot of good books on this. Alan Hirsch has a good one. There's a lot of them, but some have tried to rename it a little bit. Like, what's a pastor? Some would say a pastor is like a soul healer, someone that kind of comes in, can just see right to what you're dealing with, the pain that's in your heart, and they're able to just like project themselves into your heart, into that pain, and sit with you. And a pastor, someone that can kind of lead people into finding healing in their soul with Jesus. People would say that a prophet is a heart revealer. They are able to create art or music or whatever, and it triggers the human heart in a way that reveals what's going on in their heart. And if you think of the prophets of old, that's what they did. They spoke to the heart of the people of Israel as they walked through. And so the prophetic gift is less one of a fortune teller-ish and one more of a truth teller of like what's happening right now in your heart and how to speak to it. Yeah, and so if you look, there's a lot of different, but I think people need to think about those things in different ways. Unfortunately, people get wrapped up in the term prophet and they go, oh, are you claiming that you are like Micah? Or you're claiming that it's like, no, hold on a second. There's a prophetic gift that's beyond like the office of a specific prophet.
Sure.
Now, do I think that people might use that term prophet and abuse it? Heck yeah, I do. But what don't we abuse as humans?
Right.
Sure.
We abuse everything, but do I think there's people that are prophetic that should use that term? Probably, but they don't see themselves as that role.
Yeah.
But I would say that those to say that to get to say that fivefold gift set is not meant for the church today, I don't know how you get to that conclusion when it's wrapped up into what the church is supposed to be today. Now, what is it for? It's for the equipping of the saints. What have we made it? We've made it occupations and podiums that people stand at. So if someone's going to come to me and say, I don't believe an apostle maybe is someone who has it titled on their name, they're collecting money, and it's all about me, apostle. I would say, I probably agree with that either, because the most truest apostles I've seen, they have nothing because they give everything to everyone else accomplishing the mission of Jesus.
Wow.
So I would probably agree with that, or, if someone's used the term prophet and they're flashy and they're going out and doing these big events and making tons of money and people writing checks. If you have a hard time with that, I have a hard time with that too. Because I've seen the best prophets walk around in fear and trepidation of what God's called them to say, because they know when they speak God's word, it's probably not going to be acceptable and no one's going to be writing them checks for it. So I think, I can agree with some people saying it's not that anymore, but I don't know if you can get away of saying that like people don't carry those gifts. I mean, when you read scripture, it would appear to be that when you come to faith, God gives you a gift in one of those categories that you're meant to begin growing and walking in for the sake of equipping the church, which is the saints. So.
What's up, stewards? We just want to take a moment to thank all the amazing supporters of Good Service. Thank you guys so much. We have exciting news today. We officially have a Patreon. If you join the Patreon today as a subscriber, you get exclusive content every single week.
From Q&As, solo reflection rounds, extended episodes, vlogs, and much, much more. You're going to find all of that exclusively on our Patreon. You can log on to patreon.com/goodservicepodcast. Thank y'all so much. God bless y'all. Back to the episode.
Hey. I'm like, so as I'm listening to all this stuff, it gets me really excited, honestly, because there's more pastors that I've been meeting in my life, at least, that align with the way you feel, and opinion-wise and just lived experience-wise, the things that you've been saying. And I'm just kind of like, when are you guys gonna make a school? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on?
We're gonna charge money for it.
Yeah, when are you gonna charge? Yeah, speaking of, make a school. No, but because I'm like, not even just. Not because of the money. Yeah. The reason why I'm saying it is because it's just such good knowledge, and it like I've never even heard of any of this. And I'm 37. I'm not that young, but at the same time, I'm like I'm not that old. But in all my life, 37 years, and I grew up like Christianese. I say that, right? Because you're growing up in the church, around God people. You might believe it, not believe it, whatever. But I've been around churches for a long time. And regardless of what season I was stopping by the church, I've never heard of any of this. So what all I know is that there were some people that had to take a class that became like deacons, which were like super helpers. That worked for free and set up everything
that no one wanted to do.
And and they would do all the like dirty work of the church. And then there was elders that really sat more of like a good bound, like good elderships I've seen is like a good sounding board for the pastor, and it'd be good counsel. And some of them would actually teach, which is cool, And then there'd be like a gang of pastors. There's like 500 pastors at some churches. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so many churches here. Or so many pastors here. Like, what do you do? And what do you do? You're a pastor of what? You're automotive? What? Like what? Like what? You're a pastor of cars?
I've heard of some of those before.
Yeah. Like what do you like? What do you, like, you just do the parking? Is that what that is? Like I'm so confused.
Man, I'm down to be a dance pastor.
Dance pastor.
Ministry.
Dance ministry, food ministry pastor. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm
Sign
saying?
them up.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, like, and then I hear this stuff. Brother Will talked about it. You see it online. We're talking about it now, and when you're saying it, I'm just like, I want to know more.
Yeah.
And I go, why isn't this? Why aren't there more truth seekers and teachers that could help those like you do, in the sense your mission is to go lift up more others to find their gifts, to go be in their gift. So they, they're in that call with God,
I think a bit of it is probably the institutions we have that educate pastors now. They're just not learning it very well. I mean, probably one of the big problems was when we started Bible colleges and we separated the training of pastors away from the other careers people were training for. So if you think of a lot of Ivy League schools, were started by, Christians and missionaries and all the rest.
Yes.
And at the time, if you were training to become a pastor, you were training alongside your peers who were becoming doctors, businessmen,
So it makes
educators.
sense, yeah.
So when they left, they understood their roles. They're like, okay, pastor, you're going to help keep us organized for the purposes of Jesus. Yes. So-and-so, you're going to help care for the sick. Yes. And they all knew their role and they valued the role together. And the pastor, along with everyone, kind of knew how society worked and their role and then in society then.
Wow.
When the Bible colleges grew and those colleges started on the side where most people get trained today, now pastors are getting trained separate from the world in a sense.
Yeah,
so they're learning all these learning all the studying they're doing, but it's in separate. They don't know like what your average businessman's going through, what your average they have no idea. So then all they know is organize the incorporated version of church. So then when they start the incorporated version of church, the only way to judge if they're successful or not is by keeping everything inside the doors. So now I can only judge if I'm doing well if I got more pastors coming in. I don't evaluate if I'm doing well according to like how many people are out in the city. It's more about how many people are inside of my building.
Wow.
And of course, and I don't think anything's poor nature. They're just trying to do a good job, know. So then I think that's what's created unequal, and then they don't know. And then I think they might feel the things that I'm saying, but then they're like, what do I have to restructure my church then? Like how to get people to get that vision? And then, your average church is probably 150 people. It's probably got one pastor. He's marrying everyone, burying everyone. He's the lights guy. He's the lights guy, sound guy, worship guy, and he's preaching.
Oh my
then
gosh.
he shoots in the back and drives, Auntie Annie home every Sunday after church too. So he's like, now I got to think about like equipping the church for the sake of the world. Like, I'm like, can I just get someone to run the slides for me real quick? So I think it's just created that dynamic of what we're in. And then there's just like a bit of lack of experience in certain categories and exposure, so if you don't have key stories, like I have a very, very unique story. My essentially my mom was, crazy hippie. She got date raped. Weeks later, found out she was pregnant, goes in to get an abortion, has no context for faith her whole life, goes in to get an abortion, gets on the table, has an experience with God in the abortion clinic. As they start the procedure, she stops them, gets off the table and leaves and has me. I'm the kid in her stomach.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And when I heard that story at 13, it meant a couple things. It meant meaning, purpose, like, okay, I'm here for a reason. But then what struck me was it means that Jesus was in that clinic when no one else was. No one had to bring Jesus to that clinic to my mom. He was already there. So if he was in a place like an abortion clinic, chasing people's hearts, where else is he that I keep thinking I have to bring him there? What if he's already there?
Wow.
And then that began to change my whole perspective. So that means that people don't necessarily need to change their location to follow God. They just have to change their heart in that moment because God's already doing stuff right where they are.
Wow.
He's just wanting them to wake up to it and join them to what he's actually doing, So if people like began to get that idea, they would begin to realize I'm already where I need to be.
Wow.
I just need to wake up to what God's doing and join him and how to do it,
Dude, I just got like goosebumps, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just like sitting here, like with that imagery is so powerful because like we are already everywhere. All we have to do is change our heart. Because Jesus is already there in those spots, in those corners, in those dark places. He's literally the light bulb, and we just need to go there really quick and just turn it on. Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, that just goes to show that speaking of, what ministry is, what mission is it's everywhere. It's not just at a church building on a Sunday. It's in your local grocery store. It's on TV. It's online, and I think where we have sort of, I grew up just sort of being told that certain things are good and permissible for Christians and some things are not. Christians don't do those things. And so we've sort of unpacked that a lot, and just throughout this podcast too, with different people who are in various industries and whatnot. And I hear all kinds of crazy. When you hear about people like Church of Satan getting saved, like, isn't that like Jesus is not in the Church of Satan? Isn't that like the exact opposite of where Jesus can be? Right? And then it's like, especially this person's like, oh, bro, you're too far. You're like his enemy, But he's like, no, like Jesus is for you too.
That's right.
And we hear these stories, and and they're not just stories; they're real. They're true accounts.
Yeah.
And so as you're talking about vocational ministry being the sort of automatic, once you get saved, and if you want to do something about it for the Lord, you got to go into a church and get hired on staff, and then get a title placed on you, versus like, no, you're good where you're at, and I think about it, sure, this is like, I'm not trying to go into like extra biblical things, but the people throughout Scripture who got saved, right? Like the woman who had the hemorrhaging problem, to who have you, the person who got healed, the lame person who got healed and got up and walked. Like, what happened after that?
Yeah.
Where did does that person just disappear, or does that person live a life and interact with other people?
Yeah.
And did that person become a pastor, or did that person just continue living their life talking about what Jesus did in their life? And that person could just be like somebody who like is a marketplace, store owner.
Yeah.
And so, and that in some ways, not to say it's more effective, but not everyone has access to everyone. You don't have access to everyone. You know what I mean? You may not have access to people that I have access to, and vice versa, right? And that's why like God says, go do what you do. And to be called fishers of men doesn't mean go work for your local church body.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just go do what you do.
It's actually the opposite, because if you're out fishing for men, he didn't call you. He didn't say go work in the fish market. There's fish already there.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the church. He's saying go get out there and fish where they're not. Go catch the fish and then put them in the market.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're like fishing in the fish market.
There's already fishing. Go out there.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And that's a lot of times what happens in the church, unfortunately.
So context-wise of even just how I first met you. Yeah, we met at these couple of conferences and things, and but some close friends of mine that I've made over the especially in the last year. This term YWAM has kept coming up. I'm like, what is YWAM? But I just know so many like dope people that I know who are such close, not only close friends, but I'm just like, man, you are like just like a killer for Jesus. And maybe that's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. Like you are a soldier. You are a soldier in the battle, and just like so well equipped. Sorry,
this is not a school of assassins.
I'm not trying to be violent here. Soldier is a better term. But and so as I've been hearing about it, and I understand you have a deep history with YWAM. So for those who may not know what that is, can you talk a little bit about what YWAM is and what context you have as being part of it?
YWAM is an acronym, stands for Youth with a Mission. It was started by a guy in 1960. He was 19 years old on a trip to the Caribbean, and God gave him a vision of young people from the nations to the nations. So it wasn't about like just like Americans going to the nations. It was, he saw young people from like all nations going to all nations, back and forth for the sake of the gospel. He was kind of a shining star. His name was Lauren Cunningham, of a denomination called the Assemblies of God. He went to Assemblies of God and said, hey, I want to start this missions organization. They were like, well, at that time in the 60s, you would need to go through all this education before you could consider yourself an actual missionary. And he goes, well, the vision I got was they were young, like they were just going, like there was nothing to do. They just went. And they go, well, that's kind of fit, not fit. And so him and his wife ended up kind of cordially departing the denomination to start their own thing. And they took their first trip down to Puerto Rico. He chartered a plane and put 100 young people on it and flew to Puerto Rico, and they street evangelized for like a week. And he realized this is it. And that organization, YWAM, has grown into now the world's largest missions organization. They have over 1,800 operating locations.
Wow.
They train in over 90 languages.
Yeah.
They have over 27,000 full-time staff. Wow. Most of these staff are not white. This is, again, they're in over 180 nations. So this is a YWAMer can be from, almost any country on earth right now. Probably almost impossible to do that today because of the way borders and things are way they're closed now. It was a unique opportunity, and they've grown 10% year after year. And he actually just passed away this past year.
Wow.
But the mission continues on. And essentially the mission at its core was he wanted people to just know God and make him known, like as core as it could. And then eventually he realized people maybe need a little bit more of like a little bit more intentional training. So they created a really simple school where you go to a location for 3 months and each week's a key topic of your faith, like relationships or how to study the Bible or your worldview. And then they send you out for 3 months to go live in another country and just share the gospel.
Wow.
And that share the gospel can be like a variety of ways. This isn't just like, a karaoke machine on the street. This could be like rescuing kids or orphanage work or building homes or you have it. And this organization probably, one of the things they say, they've estimated that over 4 million people have gone through the organization now. And
4 million.
And they would say that you probably would be hard pressed in any Christian circle of leaders to not find people that maybe they're not YWAMers, but it's touched their life at some point because it's so impactful.
Yeah.
So I heard about it. I was in Bible college for a minute and I didn't do well there. And I was on the verge of getting kicked out. And thankfully I heard about YWAM. So
is that like the truth? The dropouts?
You think you're kicking me out, but I'm being sent by the Lord.
I love it.
That's good.
And so I went and joined YWAM young, and in that process got to meet the founder, and then became really close to him, and spent probably a good 15 years tearing around the world with him, sharing. The mission
How old
of
were you
YWAM.
when you started?
I would have started 19. Wow. Yeah, but I've been in and out since then. So. YWAM was really about capturing people in this idea that you're on mission wherever you are,
Yeah.
And Lauren's statement was always, you're either a mission field or a missionary. So essentially like you're either not saved and you need Jesus or you're the person getting them saved.
Right.
Like there's no professional missionary, missionary, lay missionary. No, it's just like you're
nobody
either
on the sidelines.
missionary or mission field, where are you at? Right. And so because of that impact in my life, and I think, mentorship and impartation that I had from Lauren for so long, I've had God's led me on just the ways in which that's come together for me in categories has been so fascinating. From like if I was to write a resume for a career, what God's lined up for me in that resume from like 22 years old, I was in organizational development consulting, helping consult an organizational change for 800 employee a chemical plant in Houston. Like, how does that happen? Or consulting a virtual reality, the largest virtual reality company in China at a Beijing, where they literally gave me my visa, an apartment and a driver. And I said, the only way I'll do it is if you'll drive me to preach in the underground church on the weekends and the state church. They said, fine. They gave me my visa and they drove me to preach every single weekend. Wow. Like, how does that happen? Like, that's not like traditional missions. I would have had to like come up with a tent making idea to get a sponsor, and it just happened. So those things, I can just list them off, but that's just what happens when you go, okay, I found Christ. I'm in his mission. Let's go. Yeah. Like, where is it? And the only thing holding you back is your own fears. Ooh. So if you can choose to be like, all right, Lord, you say you make me courageous. I'm down for the cause. You'd be surprised. I mean, I can't even tell you the things that I've seen God do in my life because of that, But YWAM was a big foundational seed to all that.
So the whole nature of, being a missionary, you're like, you're uprooted a lot, right? In the sense of like actual space and geography, So like going from that to where today is, right? That must have been like a really loud, interesting call too, right? Like that must have been. Yeah,
I don't think I envisioned myself running a church like I do,
right?
At the size that it is. But for me, what I shifted my thinking to, when I started growing my faith, it's been a journey to switch my faith to realize that heaven's my home and this is my mission field.
Amen.
So once I made that switch, I go, I'm not trying to build anything for myself here because it all burns anyways. So I'm like, I can't take it with me. What can I take with me? My impact for the kingdom and my friends and my relationships. That's what I get to bring with me. So what am I worried about? Like building things myself that all burn anyways, So when I made that switch here, it was like more cumbersome because it's like titles and budgets and these sort of things. But don't get it twisted. I'm still the same. At any moment, I can drop it like a hat for whatever God says. But I know He says this now. But even in that, it's like, keep pushing it. So like,
Sure.
I got practical things going out. My kids are getting older, 13 and 12. I'm like, man, you fools are getting spoiled up here in Southern California. So guess what we're doing in June? We're going to a refugee camp. So my family and I, I'm going to take them out to Thailand, drop them in a camp for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Put a mosquito net at 13 years old. That's going to wake you up on what's real or not. So like, we don't, my wife and I don't like, we're not like, we cater to this or that.
Yeah,
it's like,
sure.
no, this is the life we live.
Yeah.
And this is how God leads us. And our priorities are like this.
Yeah.
And we're always reevaluating, we're like, all right, like this is a good setup. Sure. Like I've landed the key church job in the sense of like security, that kind of stuff, like finances, the home, all the rest. But my wife and I, each and every couple months, all right, Lord, we packing, like we're down for whatever you call us to do. So because it should never, you've never made it. We've made it when we're home with the Lord. Up until then, it's all His. What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
What are we holding too tight on? What do we got to let go?
Yeah.
And God in His grace and His mercy will come along and allow things to happen to us.
Wow.
We call it pain and suffering. I call it opportunities for my heart to thrive in Jesus, where those things come alongside and shake us up and remind me what's really important, what really matters. None of this matters. And then those opportunities are God's mercy to me, so that I don't get too wrapped up in my own thing in my own kingdom, and kind of stay submitted to His will,
Wow.
Yeah, as I'm hearing you, even as you talk to God about, like, Lord, are we staying? Are we packing up? Because if you want us to go, we're down. I don't think a lot of people have that kind of dialogue with God, or they don't. That's a very scary question to ask God. Like, God, do you still want me to do this? Because if you don't want me to do, I'm down to leave. Because I'm like, would I actually be down to hear the answer to that question? You know what I'm saying? Because that literally could mean, okay, if you're really down, your life's about to drastically change and you might not know like heads from tails, but are you still down?
Yeah.
And, I feel like for me personally, these life changes for me have happened because it's like out of my hands. It's like, I guess this is what's happening.
Because
so
I couldn't, it just
like,
happened to me.
I didn't choose this. I didn't ask God for this, or maybe I did, and I didn't realize I was asking God for this, because when it's like, yeah, Lord, your will be done. Whoa. Can we talk about that? Like, what does that really mean? But, I think as you're talking about this just surrendered heart, right? This surrendered, to build your kingdom here on earth would do you nothing because it goes away anyway. You're not taking it with you. And I will also say this too. Everybody's different. Everybody, like, God has a different call for people. He also has a different, like, He's given us different personality types. He's wired people differently. Some people are meant to just be wealthy and have all the things, and they also really love the Lord and are surrendered, but that was just what God had for that person. And then there's the other person who's like, God's like, I need you to just be mobile. And you're just gonna have a heart that's just gonna be so sensitive to when I call you, you're just gonna respond and go.
Right. Yep.
And so I think I'm bringing this up because as Christians, right, this general quote unquote Christian, we may think that like, oh man, that guy's like just this crazy missionary. I guess I got to go do that too. Otherwise I'm being a bad Christian. Yeah. You know what I mean? Otherwise I'm not responding to God's call. Like that person looks like he's responding. I guess I'm over here holding on to my treasures. It's always great to check your heart posture and take that to God. Like, Lord, am I holding on to something? Am I being afraid to really respond to you? Or do you just have a different call for me? You know what I mean? And so I think this, going back to this term of a cookie cutter Christian, there's no such thing because everybody is designed very uniquely and God has a different call. Specifically, even for the stuff that we had been talking about, there are people who reach people differently. And if everyone was the same, then what's going to happen to everybody over here that no one else is over here to minister to them? You know what I mean? So it's just really cool to...
That's good. And that's good you're saying it, Ben, because I think the key principle is listen and obey.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say, don't obsess over the calling, obsess over the caller.
Yeah.
That's key. And then it'll land the way it's supposed to land. And it's not going to look different. God's big enough to incorporate 7, 8, 9, 10 billion different kinds of plans on each one of our lives,
Yeah.
but listening and obeying is the key one.
Yeah.
And I would say to your question also about your statement about, it's scary to ask the question. This is where you get to see God be so in love with our hearts, where he will literally, we are scared to hear what he might say. And then when we listen, he gives us something more than we ever would have wanted. It's like this weird thing. And then not only that, if he has something for us that he might know is a bit scary for us, in his goodness and his nature, he gives us the grace to actually figure out we liked it when we never thought we would.
Yeah.
Wow.
And probably the way I've seen in my life when God's moving or changing is I start finding the grace of what I'm doing is lifting. And all of a sudden I realize, how have I been doing this for 2 years? What you're sensing right now, Ken, with all that you've been doing, when you're saying, if I would have been doing this stuff 2 years ago, it didn't make any sense at all. And it kind of makes sense now. Well, it's because God's put a grace on you for what he's called you to right now. But there'll probably be a moment where all of a sudden you're going to wake up and be like, I'm not so cool with this. And why not? And God's like, because I'm trying to get your head up a bit because I want to start showing you something else.
Yeah.
So his goodness is that he'll give us the grace even to do the things that we think are hard. But his love and his kindness is that he actually ends up calling us to something that maybe was already so deep within us. We didn't know anyone knew it. And we realized that's the thing he's calling us to do.
Wow.
And then we find that his goodness is so rich. So I think too often we project our experiences of our dads and leaders and coaches on God. When we truly listen to him, we find out he's nothing like any of those things.
Mm-hmm. That's man. That is so powerful. I totally resonate with the you not thinking that you could even do something that you realize that God is giving you grace to now even find enjoyment doing it. And, for the longest time, ever since I was in high school, that's when I got saved. And, I would always just be like talking about what God's doing in my life. And I just couldn't stop. But I wasn't, trying to be a preacher or anything. I was just like, man, God's like changing my life in this way and that way. And they're like, man, you should be a pastor. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be a pastor. And literally that title or people ascribing that thing to me has followed me my entire life pretty much ever since I got saved. And then, even the homies around me now, they're like, Pastor Ben, da 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 da. And I'm just like, y'all need to stop saying that. But now I'm understanding that to have a pastoral role or a calling or not even just that, but like for you to have a gift, like an evangelistic gift, doesn't mean you need to go and be a missionary evangelist.
That's right.
You have an evangelistic gift wherever you're at.
right.
You don't need to quit your job.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like you just have this gift. And so I'm seeing now that even in the way that like I enjoy doing this podcast. It really makes me excited.
Yeah.
And when I explain it to other people, they look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, what? A podcast? You guys eat and talk about, okay, that's cool. And I'm just like, man, you just don't get it, dude. This thing is so fun because of the nature of the substance of what we're talking about. We're not just over here like cracking jokes and whatever. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but like that personally doesn't fuel me. For me to talk about a whole bunch of nothing is boring to me, to be honest with you. And I used to think that was the stuff that's like, wow, that's entertainment. Like that's the stuff that people want, right? So they want to laugh, they want to feel light. But like the great thing is we do all of that here too. Yeah. It's not, we're breaking bread, we're having a meal, we're enjoying, we're laughing. And then we talk about what's really on our heart. Yeah. And the Holy Spirit is like, I am on your guys' heart and I'm going to bring that conversation to the table. Yeah. And then when this goes out and people hear it and they watch it, they get to join in on this conversation in this meal, they'll get some nourishment, they'll get some enriching from it. And that is like,
what's more pastoral than that? Pastor Ben, Reverend Ben, we'll call you Rev.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, hey, honestly, the nickname Rev fits you pretty well
right,
for some
dude.
reason.
Yeah. Rev,
One thing I love asking, especially leaders that have their sheep, that have a church. You guys also have something that I love to ask questions about, which is like you have data pool, meaning you kind of know an ebb of flow what God's kind of doing because you got hundreds of people that love God. Some of them know them better or whatever. I don't know where their walks are. However, you're seeing all these Christians ebb and flow. So my question is to most pastors that we get on the show is like, recently I've been feeling urgency, lots of urgency, just an overarching urgency. Like I feel like, I look at my kids, they're like 5 and 7, and I think to myself, like, am I gonna see my grandkids? Are my grandkids gonna have kids? And I'm talking like, not to get all like end timey. I just think about these things because I'm starting to feel so much urgency, and I'm also seeing like new things happen that I've never seen before. I'm seeing like the conversation of God entering new spaces I haven't seen before. I'm also seeing like fighting between, Christianity and whatnot happening in different spaces that at least in my lifetime, I haven't seen before. So I'm starting to see the ebb and flow. You also have a global perspective, which is unique to you. I'm very curious, like what are you seeing? And if there's any words to that for those that don't go to your church, so you don't know I don't know how what you tell your congregation about it, but I'd love to have our listeners hear some.
Yeah, I think, we're one day closer to Jesus coming back than we were yesterday.
Praise God. Praise God.
So we can count on that, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that in the early church, there were people that were super concerned with the same thing and were reordering their lives because of it. They were stopping their work, they're quitting their jobs, they were ditching everything.
Right.
And then that's all the letters of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, more 2nd Thessalonians. Essentially, Paul comes in and goes, hold on a second, pump the brakes. Right. Like he's coming, but not yet. So keep doing what you're doing for the kingdom until he comes. And well, that was, 2,000 years ago, he's not come yet. So in my mind, we are closer than we've ever been, just by the nature of time. I would say that we are dealing with some really unique things for the first maybe in the world. I think technology, we're going to see some breakthroughs in technology in the next 5 years or so. That's really going to challenge what it is to be human anymore. I think we're dealing with some ideology where parents are having to fight for their kids' minds and hearts more than ever before. I think we're probably seeing in the West, we're seeing a greater distinction of Christian ideology versus the world's ideology separating more than ever before.
Wow.
We're seeing probably more confusion globally than we ever had before. And it's touching everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously not in the same way. So I would say in the past, well, things are happening in the West, but East hasn't caught up yet, or different parts of the Southern Hemisphere haven't caught up yet. It feels like everyone's catching up at a very fast rate.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely been some plans of the enemy that's been at work for a lot of time that have been, the curtain's been pulled back and it's kind of on display now.
Yeah.
And I think Satan's working in the midst of, and it deals with pride and finance and control. Ultimately, I think it's control. So it would appear to be like I went over to the Sphere in Vegas last weekend. My wife took me there for my birthday, and they had an AI robot display that was going on. The latest AI, the latest robotics mixed with the latest AI.
That was the show itself that you watched?
No, there was a show that was like the exhibit just inside. It was part of that.
I see. Yeah.
The show inside on the outside, and you can go and visit the robots. And they were unattended robots, and you could talk with them.
Oh my gosh.
Like complete, and these new robots, they're doing the full like facial thing, blinking, and you could talk about whatever you wanted. And they were just responding in real time based off AI.
Wow.
Now, of course, it's still like a bit robotic, but in 5 years.
Right. Like that just happened
like
right
that,
now.
Yeah, like, I mean, so the fight to be human, the fight for our kids. So I would say, it feels like there is an urgency right now, but the urgency should be an urgency to kind of know where you stand on what you believe and what you know to be true. And if you have kids, the urgency is to disciple them well and be conscious of where they're getting their information from, because that's also trying to disciple them, and raise kids that value being human, because Christ was human. He wasn't a robot. So the flesh incarnate has value. As much as AI and technologists would like to tell you, no, it's flawed, we can make a better version. They just made a big statement saying, finally, because of AI, we'll be able to write a new Bible for a perfect religion. Okay, this is all the stuff that they're coming out with right now. Like, this is all like happening, right? This is all that is on the front of everyone's thinking. So yeah, it's like more than ever, it's like, okay, slow down.
Wow.
Like, what's really important? How do I make decide my kids? How do I make sure they know? How do I know what I believe? And then I think all of this is creating a bit of fear globally. It's like a global fear that people are feeling.
Yeah.
And we're meant to step into that fear as Christians and go, there's a way to not be fearful of anything because you can have Christ.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And with Christ, it doesn't matter what happens anyways because he wins in the end and you're in him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
He won.
but yeah, I mean, I don't like to get into like, I value, and I have friends on both sides of thought, like end times, Israel, it's all happening. Some people say, well, no, it's now about the church, and we're not sure the end. Like, I have friends on all the categories.
Sure.
When people come to my church, I got 60 minutes. I'm not meant to be a cultural commentator. I'm not going to do that. You need Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus.
Yep.
And then we'll create other avenues to have those as conversations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because that's not meant to be up here preaching at you. That's meant to like, hey, brother, sister, so let's talk about this stuff. What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just read this crazy article. What was the crazy article you read? I don't know. Let's talk about it,
Yeah.
And that church should be a place to have those conversations.
Totally.
But if I'm going to show up at the front, I'm not going to use that time to like, you know.
I think that's great. And these sort of side conversations, not calling them side as if they're not important.
No, exactly.
But they need to.
But they need to be conversations.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. So your book, Change Together, I feel like we're probably kind of like addressing a lot of the stuff that, you've talked about in your
Some
book.
of it, yeah.
Can you just briefly just kind of like walk us through kind of like what was the inspiration behind why you decided to write that book?
Yeah. I think for me, so I had traveled with Lauren Cunningham, founder of Youth of the Mission, as we talked for a lot of years. And part of my role was to speak alongside him. We'd get a slot, he'd speak, and then he'd have me come and speak, kind of like next gen guy. And then we would do an altar call, these huge churches. Didn't matter if it was in Norway or South Korea or New Zealand, wherever we were together. These big churches come together. Lauren would talk, I would talk, and then he'd want to do an altar call. And the altar call was, who wants to be a missionary? And so we would do this call.
Wow.
It's not even who wants to be a Christian.
No, we're going right with that. Missionary or mission field, man. Let's do this.
I don't understand Jesus. All good. Let's go. We'll teach you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy,
Exactly.
bro. Wow. What a man, dude.
He would do these calls, and then I'd get up there with them. They'd come down, and we would pray for them. But we would only capture like 25% of the audience. Mm-hmm. And so I remember one time we were praying I think it was actually in South Korea. We're praying all these people that want to be missionary. And I felt God nudge me and say, look over your shoulder. And I looked over my shoulder and I saw everyone, like the 2,000 plus people still sitting there. And Jesus, I heard him loud and clear, what about them? And I was like, yeah, what about them? And he goes, aren't they part of my mission too? And so that's when I started working with this idea of like, well, maybe some people are career missionaries, but shouldn't we all be at least lifestyle missionaries?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so then I thought, okay, well, what is the essence of what a missionary does? Like aside from like write newsletters and get on airplanes, like what's the essence of how we live that actually every believer should be living like this? What are the things that we practice? Because we don't get it perfect. What do we practice? And so that was kind of the inspiration for the book. So I came up with 7 things that I noticed in my life, my friend's life, that we are practicing on the daily that allowed us to continue in Jesus' mission wherever we were. So one of them was pray expectantly, not religiously. Yeah. So like we didn't need to have like religious rooms to pray in. We didn't need to have structures. We would just wake up and be conscious like God's mission's around us. Holy Spirit, you want to speak to me? What's up today? I'm listening. Like I'm tuned in. I'm taking a moment to be tuned in outside of all things that I got to do to be awake to what you're doing around me, you know. And, one of the things I think was I can't remember them all now, but we live scripture, not memorize it. You know, not memorizing isn't good, but it's not just about like intellectually puffing myself up. Like if I'm going to read this, I got to live it. Like that's the best part of scripture to other people, that I'm living it. People can see it in my life. Like I'm able to make those tough decisions. Hey, I'm in a job that's going against my integrity and my faith. I can't stay here anymore. So I have to change jobs. Why'd you do that? Because my faith is lined up with these values. There was no way for me to reconcile this. So I'm living the scripture. I'm not just memorizing all these verses, but not living it. So we went through and identified those 7 things, and change together, not alone, was one of the practices. And the idea is the change you want to see in your life and the change we want to see in the lives of the people around us won't happen on mission alone. It'll only happen if we're doing it together. Yeah. And so that was the idea of change together.
That's good.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. Dang.
Well, Matt, we call our show Good Service. We love to frequent these amazing food establishments. Shout out Pioneer Chicken for this. Man, I feel like I was so just distracted in the first few minutes.
Man, we almost lost the show.
I'm not ready to talk yet. I got to take at least 4 more bites.
Yeah.
But shout out Pioneer Chicken. But yeah, we hit up these amazing restaurants that provide good food, good service, good experiences, but also, as God has called us all uniquely, he's gifted us with unique gifts and desires. And with that, we all have a unique way to serve. And so what is good? What is service? What is good service to you?
I love that reaction.
That's a good question. What is good? I think what is good are the things of God.
Amen.
I think that's what is best. That is the true goodness of God, his beauty, his love, his kindness, his mercy, his justice, his grace. And I think we're meant to be a service of that good, sharing that to those around us in every capacity that we have. While we might want to be quick-tempered in a moment to fight for our own position in our company, what would it look like to lay down our lives and be a good servant, offering the service of his goodness to those around us? Wow. So that's what I think good service stands for.
Dude, that is a true missionary answer, bro.
Yes. That's rich, man.
So on brand, man.
Well, dude, Matt, we just want to just thank you for making the drive out here to come and hang out with us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. We'd love to have you back. But
we'll see after the comments, but sure.
Yeah. You might need to come back and readdress some things. Let me clarify.
Follow-up answer.
We have an emergency good service podcast tonight.
I actually get asked to be on a lot of podcasts. I typically say no because I'm like, I can be often too quick in my mind and just say what I'm feeling in the moment, and then I'm like, but of course I meant all those other things too.
Right.
But just gotta snip the juicy. No, I was kidding.
Well, thank you for saying yes to ours. We appreciate you, but man, I just want to acknowledge you, bro. I think, as I was like looking up, a lot of times when I do a little bit of homework for the guests, I'm just like, oh, wow, they did this. No, wow, they're known for that. And I couldn't find too much. And it's just a lead teaching pastor. And then, he wrote a book, and he's affiliated with YWAM. But all 3 of those things, and, I don't know too much of your past career related things. Not a lot of that stuff's out there. But as you even talk about, building for oneself, right? And then as you really strip down, like, what does that other stuff even matter? I'm not taking any of that with me. What matters is relationships that I build that are ultimately going to last for eternity, because they will last for eternity. And so what you stand for, what you believe in, and kind of just you live this sort of like simplistic, stripped down version of life, not to mean that it's not enriching, because it's so full. Your ministry is so full, and the people that you reach. I personally know good friends of mine that talk so highly about how you and your wife have ministered to them, and how they literally look up to you guys as their mentors in so many regards. And so I just want to acknowledge you, man. I mean, that to me, if someone were to model Jesus's how he would live in this present day, I think he would be living like that, So just want to acknowledge that in you, praise God for that and how he's working in you. And also, for the sake of being good service, we want to also serve you. And so what is a way that we here or our listening audience can serve you in this time?
Keep doing it, bro. Keep being the group that reaches an audience that will never step foot in my church, will never hang out in the circles I hang out in. Be their church. Be their people. Be the ones that point them to Jesus.
Wow.
And don't let anyone tell you different. Don't let anyone come in, take it over. Don't let anyone try to give you money to take your influence so they can make it part of their thing to make themselves feel better. Don't build buildings, build people, serve people. Keep reaching the audience, God. And as you're faithful to it, God is going to bring the ones that are looking to hear from you guys. So you guys just got to keep doing it. And then don't wrap it up in anything. Don't think it's got to be a part of anyone's thing to make it bigger, validate it. You validated enough. You're validating what you're doing, and just keep going. And God will bring the people.
Amen.
Man, I received that, man. I received that.
But if you want to write a check to good service, go ahead. Get that Patreon account right now. Support the blog.
Matt already knows. We wrote the script for him.
We planted that.
But for real, no, thank you, Matt. Like legit, thank you.
life-giving,
I
man.
received
Thank
that
you.
in Jesus' name. We received that in Jesus' name.
Amen.
But speaking of which, because he brought it up, we do have a Patreon, guys. So if you feel led to, if we are providing service to you, value to you, even entertainment, encouragement, whatever it is that you're receiving, if that means something to you, we would love your financial support, which you can do by subscribing to our Patreon. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, we are going to have exclusive content. We're going to build out, and we're actually going to be inviting our Patreon community into that content, meaning whatever you guys are wanting from us, whether that be answering specific questions that you guys have, or maybe expanding on different topics that we didn't really go too deep on the podcast. Like, we want to engage with you guys to know what you guys want. So this is about you guys, and this is for the community, and this is a way for us to connect even deeper. We have live events coming up very, very soon, so we're going to be dropping those announcements very soon. And that's it. Cash App is still there too. So if y'all want to just hit that Cash App, we would definitely appreciate that also. And that's it. Good service. We appreciate. We love y'all. We see you on the next one. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, and leave us that 5-star rating. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Good Service Pod, and on YouTube at Good Service Podcast.
Thank you. Peace.